do this every morning. It's way too corny.
It's just till he's 18. Smile.
Got it.
Pittsburgh police, this is an arrest warrant.
You're under arrest for murder.
My wife attempted suicide. I have to see her. 2 minutes, please.
I don't think I can last another 20 years.
You have to have the entire plan already in place. You have to ask yourself, can you kill a god? Leave your kid at a gas station? Because to do this thing, that's who you have to become. And if you can't, don't start. You'll just get someone killed.
Why are you doing this?
Because we have no other choice.
What if you can't get out? Then surrender, because they will shoot you on sight.
Laura Brennan and her husband John met with his brother Mick and his wife Erit at a restaurant. The day before, Laura had a fight with her boss and now thinks she has lost the job. Erit began to behave provocatively and flirt with John, causing conflict between the women. Their husbands had to intervene. Dinner was over. John calmed his jealous wife. At home, she wished their son a good night and spent time with her beloved husband. The next morning, Laura reminded John that it was his father's birthday yesterday. John forgot to congratulate him, but didn't feel guilty as he has a complicated relationship with his father. Laura was surprised to discover red stains on her coat. At that moment, the police burst into the house and arrested Laura, accusing her of taking the life of her boss. Some time passed. John and Luke went to visit Laura in prison. As usual, they were thoroughly searched by the guards at the entrance. Laura was happy to see her husband, but their son hasn't spoken to her since she went to jail. Laura is upset, but her mood is lifted when John gives her an envelope with photos of Luke. Recently, the couple filed an appeal in court to appeal the verdict. Laura claimed that she saw the real criminal that night. That woman bumped into her on the street and caught a button on her coat with the purse. However, the police could not find this button. Laura is in despair, saying that she cannot survive here for the next 20 years. John promised her that everything will be okay. The visit time ended, and Laura was taken away. John is waiting for his son, who is playing in the playground. There are many moms with children here. One of the women who walked with her daughter Carrie smiled at John. At night, the man studied the case materials again. The investigation believes that after the quarrel with her boss, Laura took a fire extinguisher and attacked her. The traces of the victim's DNA on her coat confirm this theory. Soon John met with his wife's lawyer, Meyer Fisk. He delivered bad news. The second appeal was denied. Moreover, all evidence points to Laura's guilt. Meyer was straightforward and said that there is no hope.
I will find someone to file the pleadings.
When John met with Laura again, he couldn't hold back his tears. From the look on the husband's face, Laura understood everything and cried. John came to his parents' house to pick up Luke. Seeing John's condition, the mother hugged him. Mick and Erit were no less upset. In the evening, John read the mother's letters to Luke. The boy still cannot forgive her. John didn't sleep at night, continuing to study the case materials. Suddenly the phone rang. Frightened John rushed to the hospital. The administrator refused to let him see Laura, as visits to patients brought from the county jail are strictly prohibited. John begged the doctor to give him at least 2 minutes. After all, he took pity on him. It turned out that Laura tried to leave her life voluntarily. John took her hand. She didn't say a word to him. John is a literature teacher. He works during the day and does not sleep at night, feeling completely helpless in the situation. Despite everything, John is not going to give up. He found a person named Damon Pennington on the internet, who managed to escape from prison multiple times. He even wrote a book about it. Soon John met with Damon at a cafe. John pretended that he needed this information for a project. However, Damon immediately guessed that his interlocutor was lying. According to Damon, in order to escape, you need to carefully study the routine in prison, noting every detail. It is easy to escape, but it is difficult not to get caught later. From that day, John began to prepare for the escape plan. He hung a map of the city on the wall, knowing that he and Laura would have no more than 15 minutes before the police closed the city center and began patrolling all areas. Damon also said that they should not run through local airports, but through the neighboring state. Fake documents need to be made in advance, and a lot of money is needed to carry out this plan. Damon admitted that he surrendered to the cops soon after the escape. He could no longer suffer and wait for the police to come for him. From now on, visiting his wife in prison, John carefully watched everything that was happening around him. He took photos, studying the shift schedule of the guards at the post and all other nuances. John put the furniture and possessions up for sale to make as much money as possible. Now he had to find illegals who would make fake documents for him. A guy who trades in prohibited substances advised him to go to a bar in one of the local hotels and find Harv. John did just that. A certain guy noticed him in the bar. John found Harv, but hooligans attacked and robbed him, advising him never to come here again. At home, John cleaned himself up. When meeting the mother, he lied that his bruises were from falling off the bike. Of course, the mother didn't believe it. John didn't give up trying to find someone to make fake documents for him. However, it turned out to be much harder than he thought. One evening, there was a knock on the door. The same guy from the bar was standing at the threshold. He was deaf and red lips, so he understood that John needed fake documents. The guy asked for photos for the documents and a prepayment. They agreed to meet on Wednesday. When John came to his wife, he confessed that he had to put the house up for sale. Later, the man went to a gun store to buy a gun. As agreed, John met the guy under the bridge and picked up the ready-made documents. At home, he watched video tutorials on making a universal key that could open any door. When John went on a jail date with his wife, he surrendered all metal objects, but managed to sneak the universal key. John decided to test it, but the key got stuck in the lock and broke. John panicked, pretending he wasn't involved. Soon the alarm sounded. The security was questioning every visitor. John was not visible on the surveillance camera, but the head of security suspected him and advised to think about what would happen to the son if his father followed his mother to prison. When John was leaving, he felt sick from the stress. He fell into depression and didn't even open the door to his brother. The police are keeping an eye on him after the incident at the prison. One day Nicole, Carrie's mother, struck up a conversation with John at the playground. She invited John, his son and wife to Carrie's birthday party, but John said his wife wouldn't come. Nicole suggested that John and his son have lunch with them. The man was embarrassed but agreed. Nicole finds it strange that Luke always walks out with his father and not his mother. John admitted that his wife was in prison. Nicole wasn't expecting to hear that. John came up with a plan to get Laura out of prison. Since she had diabetes, he would substitute her tests, making doctors think that she had a life-threatening complication. John is closely observing the car that regularly delivers analyses from the prison to the hospital. After that, he found online how to break into the car lock with a tennis ball. When the driver left, John sneaked into the car and took pictures of the analyses. Now he has a sample of the documents. During the next meeting with his wife, John heard bad news. She will soon be transferred to another prison. Now he only has 3 days left to organize the escape. In that time, John won't be able to close the deal on selling the house. This forced John to make a desperate decision. Leaving his son with the parents, he planned a robbery, but couldn't bring himself to do it. During the next meeting, Laura, unable to contain her emotions, told the husband that it was time for him to accept that she would spend the rest of her life in prison. Laura is also surprised that in all this time John never once asked whether she was guilty. John was sure his wife was innocent, but she hinted that he might be wrong. John tried to make sense of what he heard for a long time, but when he came to his senses, returned to Laura and said that he didn't need any evidence. He already knows that she is innocent. John promised the wife that she would not live like that. Laura couldn't hold back her tears. That same night, John, determined, followed a suspicious guy on the street and broke into his house to rob. A family engaged in illegal business lives here. John aimed his gun at the leader and demanded to know where the money was. For credibility, John fired and spilled hard alcohol on the floor, setting off a fire. The illegals was terrified because there was a laboratory in this house. A shootout ensued, during which John took the life of the ringleader. When John was leaving, the ringleader's wounded brother begged not to leave him here. John was taking him to the hospital, but he didn't get there in time. The guy passed away. John left him on a park bench. When the police arrived at the burned house, they discovered a laboratory in the basement. Meanwhile, John made a breach in the fence so that nothing would hinder the escape later. At night, he went to his parents' house for his son, who had been asleep. The father asked John if everything was okay. He lied that he was. John wanted to wake up his son to go home. At that moment, the father found 3 plane tickets in his wallet. John didn't notice when he too fell asleep. When the man woke up, it was already morning. Before John left, the father hugged him for the first time in a long time. He understood that soon his son and grandson would be far away. While the detectives were doing their job, Luke and John packed the things, taking only what was necessary. Now John had enough money to escape. He ripped all the maps off the wall and threw them in the garbage can. After that, the man cut the wires in the electrical switchboard of the prison building so that an operator could not contact anyone. John hacked into the car that delivered medical examinations data to the hospital and swapped Lara's test results. The detectives had no leads in the robbery and arson case, except for a shard of the car. Meanwhile, John brought Luke to Carrie's birthday party. Nicole wanted John to stay, but the man said he urgently needed to finish some things. The detectives found out that the car belonged to Lara Brennan, who was in prison. The police intended to check on her husband. When the doctors saw Lara's test results, they were shocked. Since John had cut the wires, the doctor could not get through to the operator and asked the ambulance to be sent to the prison. Lara was taken to the hospital in handcuffs. She had no idea that John was following her. Meanwhile, the detectives visited John's house. Inside, it was empty because the house was being prepared for sale. When Lara was taken to the hospital, the lieutenant made a call and warned that the prisoner's husband might be up to something. John came into the ward with a gun and ordered the police to put down their weapons and kneel. Lara, shocked, begged her husband to stop, but he said it was the only way. This was the only way their family could reunite. After changing into white gowns, the spouses left the ward and ran into the elevator. The lieutenant tried to intercept them, but John pointed his gun at him. Lara couldn't believe this was really happening, but the husband assured her that everything would be okay and told her to change clothes. Seeing white gowns on the floor, the lieutenant thought the spouses had already left the hospital. Taking advantage of this, they actually escaped. The carnival was taking place in the city, so John and Lara had no trouble blending in with the crowd. However, soon the lieutenant spotted them on the subway and ordered all the stations to be blocked. John and Lara managed to board the train. Upon seeing this, the lieutenant ordered via radio to stop the transport. John had anticipated this. The train did not stop immediately, so he opened the door right on the move and led his wife through the breach in the fence to a pre-parked car. While driving, John began to change clothes and drove as fast as he could. John bought his wife insulin, cosmetics, and all the essentials in advance. She thinks their plan is crazy. When John arrived to pick up his son, he found out that Nicole had taken the children to the zoo and they wouldn't return for an hour. This was not part of John's plan. Detectives found the map in the garbage cans near John's house. At that moment, the fugitives were driving to get their son. Police cars were constantly passing by them. Time was running out. John realized they wouldn't make it and turned in another direction. But Lara said she wouldn't go anywhere without the son. John promised his wife that he would figure out a way to retrieve Luke, and in the meantime he would live with his parents. If they didn't escape now, they would never escape. Lara opened the car door while it was still moving and almost fell out. John managed to catch her in time and stopped the car. The couple got out and sat on the side of the road, holding hands. Time had been lost, but now they had nothing to lose, so they went to the zoo to get their son. John took Luke away and thanked Nicole for watching him. Upon seeing her son, Laura realized she would never allow him to be without his mother again. Nicole was puzzled to see John's wife, who was supposed to be in prison. The family headed to the train station. John knew that the police were looking for a married couple with a child, so he wanted to find for fellow travelers. The detectives studied the map they found. When the police stopped John for inspection, they didn't suspect anything because besides the family, there was an elderly couple in the car. The family arrived in Buffalo and dropped off their passengers. Meanwhile, detectives were investigating every lead. At the train station, John easily obtained tickets and boarding passes while the detectives questioned John's parents. The man replied that he hadn't spoken to his son for many years and had no idea where they were heading. When it was necessary to present documents before boarding the plane, John was very nervous. Laura decided to do it herself. According to the database, the documents of the spouses and their son were clean. Only when they left, an airport employee received a notification from the police about the criminals. After studying the maps, detectives figured out where the fugitives were heading. Officers immediately rushed to the airport, but neither John nor Laura were among the passengers. The lieutenant realized that John deliberately misled them by leaving fake maps in the trash. The family safely boarded the plane to Venezuela. That same evening, John's father found this country on the map. Detectives Quinn and Calero began to doubt that Laura committed the crime. Perhaps she really encountered a real criminal on the street, and when she saw the fire extinguisher, she picked it up, leaving her fingerprints. This also explains why there were traces on her coat. John, Laura, and Luke were already far from home, safe. Detective Quinn hopes to find the button that, according to Laura, flew off her coat. It rained that day too. 3 years have passed, so of course, the detectives found nothing. At this moment, we see the button falling into a manhole. Looking at the sleeping wife and son, John realizes that he has fulfilled his duty. Now nothing